I'd like to call the Hollis Brookline Cooperative School Board May 15th meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. It looks like we have a pretty packed house, so welcome to all of you. I first would like to appoint a process observer. I only have 3 of you, so someone, I'll appoint you, but
I'll do it.
Thank you. And we have some meeting minutes that we need to approve.
Agenda adjustment?
Sorry. Oh, sorry, I skipped that. We have one agenda adjustment?
Well, potentially 2.
Okay.
The first one is we're going to just remove the action under deliberations regarding the middle school schedule for tonight. We'll take that up in June. The second one is we need to, at the end of the meeting, just discuss a special meeting date because the turf field bids will come in May 24th. And we'd like to bring a recommendation to the board sometime the following week or within those 2 weeks there. So we'll be looking at calendars to see when we can arrange another date for a meeting.
And what was the date you said?
The bids come in Friday, May 24th. So I was thinking of keeping it on that Wednesday, but didn't know what people's calendars look like for the 29th. So we can go through our calendars later, but I just wanted to let you know that was coming. And we still have, with Melanie, Tom, and Liz not able to attend tonight, we'll reach out to them and see when we can get the majority. Okay?
Great. So policy BEDB reads that the board shall follow the order of business set up by the agenda unless the order is altered by a majority vote of the members present. Items of business not on the agenda may be discussed and acted upon if the majority of the board agrees to consider them. The board, however, may not revise board policies or adopt new ones unless such action has been scheduled or unless there's an emergency. So since you're really dropping items, we don't need to vote on this, or do we?
It's always easier just to take a quick vote.
Okay, so would someone like to motion that the agenda be adjusted as requested by the superintendent?
So moved.
Motion. Cindy and Beth. Is there any discussion on this? Did we lose our quorum?
We
Yes.
did, but it's just, I can almost see her.
Okay, we need to hold off for just a minute.
Hand me something to write with.
Okay, here's a
I can't find mine. If I'm going to do the process, I'm sure. Yes, that's right.
We just have to wait.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, a nice day. When all else fails, talk about the weather. That's what my husband's grandfather taught me.
She probably doesn't realize that we're waiting on her for a motion.
Yeah, she thought we were just adjusting the agenda, so.
How was your day, Mr. Barnes? Swell. How about yours? Yeah, it was good. We got to spend a little time today.
We did.
Yeah, it was very productive.
She had a call, what is it?
Yeah.
I think it's after 31.
We are voting on the agenda adjustment.
Okay.
So there was a motion that the agenda be adjusted, and,
I did hear that.
okay, great. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, that's 4-0. Great.
Never been that important before.
Okay. We have some minutes to approve. Is that next on the list? Yes. Unfortunately, the first approval of minutes for the public hearing, the only member of us who was present was Tom Solon.
Mhm.
So do we have to move on from those? We can't do those, right?
Right, I would move on.
Okay. The second set of minutes was the public hearing on February 21st, 2019. Can I have a motion to accept as presented those minutes? Krista, seconded by, can I have a second? Cindy. Any discussion?
We just need a majority, right? Because I would abstain.
Yeah, I think we're okay, because your abstention's
sure.
not a no, so, yeah. So, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions, got it. Okay, and then last month's minutes of April 10th, we need to approve those. The following amendments were offered. Line 2, replace 3019 with 2019. Page 5, line 18, replace agenda with meeting. Page 6, line 17, replace its with the. Page 9, line 2, replace on with by. Page 10, line 23, replace funding with funded. Page 17, line 11, delete is. And also on page 6, line 35, Ms. Miller should be Ms. Williams, I believe, because we don't have a Ms. Miller. So can I get a motion to accept those minutes as amended?
So moved.
Krista, second by Cindy.
Just, I wasn't here, so I can't vote on them.
Can she second them?
Yes.
Okay. So is there any other discussion on the minutes? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? And abstentions? Great. Just flying through, just flying. Okay, and now time for nominations, resignations, retirements, and correspondence. That's you, Mr. Roy.
Yes, I'm just going to start with correspondence. I had emailed the board the other day. We have recently completed our required testing for lead at both the middle school and the high school, actually for all the schools across the SAU. Their middle school, there were absolutely no issues. At the high school, we had 6 locations cited. 5 of those locations are sinks. We went around and we investigated. They are sinks that are not often used, so they haven't been flushed or used. And one is a bubbler that is very seldom used. We will be bringing in the remediation company who will go through that. And we'll have another test before the 30 days are up, and then move forward with the next set of remediation. But I just want to let the public know that it's in process. This is a result of the new law this year, and that we have completed the testing and we are starting that phase. Just to give you an idea, it required, just at the high school alone, 163 different sites had to be tested. So that's where we stand.
And you said they won't be used in the meantime.
They are shut down. Yeah, they are absolutely shut down. Then I have a resignation. This letter is my notice that I'm resigning from my job as math teacher at Hollis Brookline Middle School at the end of the 2018-2019 school year. I would like to take this opportunity to express my appreciation to my colleagues from whom I have learned so much over the years. I would like also to thank Pat Goyette for giving me the opportunity to start my career at Hollis Brookline Middle School. My biggest joy has been working with the students, teaching them not only about math, but inspiring them to reach their full potential. Sincerely, Pat Marquette. So we need a motion on that?
Yep, so we need a motion to accept the resignation with regrets of Pat Marquette.
So moved.
By Cindy. I need a second.
Second.
Is that effective
End of the school year.
end of the school year? So motion by Krista, seconded by, by Beth. All those, any discussion? All those in favor?
I also have a series of nominations. The first one is for Kristen Shazinski. I apologize to Kristen if I said that wrong, but I will spell it for Dawn at home. SZCZESZYNSKI. Kristen will be joining us as a physical science teacher at the high school next year. She has her bachelor's in electrical engineering from the University of Waterloo. So she'll be placed on bachelor's step 2 for a salary of $44,004.
Can you repeat the salary one more time?
Sure, $44,004.
Okay, so we need a motion to accept the superintendent's nomination of Kristen Jazinski for the position of physical science teacher at a step 2 and a salary of $44,004.
So moved.
Krista, and we need a second.
Second.
Second, Beth. Any discussion? All those in favor? 4-0.
The next nomination is for Shawn Hastings. Shawn will be coming to the high school for a math teacher. He has his bachelor's in math from Keene State in 2011, as well as his bachelor's in education from Keene State in 2011. He is bachelor's step 7 for a salary of $50,519.
Great. So we need a motion to accept the superintendent's nomination of Shawn Hastings for the position of math teacher at step 7 and a salary of $50,519. Second?
Second.
Beth. Any questions, comments, discussion? All those in favor? 4-0.
Next, we have Jennifer Shreves, Shreves. She'll be joining us as a life science teacher next year. She has her bachelor's in biology and chemistry from St. Joseph's College of Maine, and she has her master's in public health from UNH. So she'll be placed at master's step 4 for a salary of $50,676. 50676.
Great.
And which school was that?
High school.
Life Science High School, okay. So,
Master's step, I'm sorry.
4.
so we need a motion to accept the nomination of Jennifer Shreves for the position of high school life science teacher at master's step 4, with a salary of $50,676.
So moved.
And that's Krista and Beth. Any questions, discussion? All in favor? 4-0. Lying.
Next, at the middle school,
I need a bigger piece of paper.
we have Abraham Ewing. Abraham will be joining us in the tech ed position for the 2019-2020 school year.
Would you mind spelling the last
Ewing. He has his bachelor's from Southern Oregon University. He would be at a bachelor's step 5 at $47,805.
So we need a motion to accept the nomination of Abraham Ewing as the middle school tech ed teacher in the position of middle school tech ed teacher at a bachelor's step 5 salary of $47,805.
So moved.
Krista's moving and seconded by Beth. Any discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor? 4-0.
That is it for nominations, resignations, and correspondence.
Great, thank you very much. So at this point, we are going to open the mic to public input. I'm just going to explain a little bit about how public input works. This is an opportunity for us to hear from the public. It's not a question and answer time, so you won't expect responses from the board at this point, but we will certainly be listening and taking into consideration your comments. When you come to the mic, please introduce yourself by stating your name and address. And there's a lot of you, so if there's multiple people, we would like you to kind of keep it to 2 minutes so that we can move along. Can someone take just, or I'll take it. I just want to know who gets the mic. Okay? At this point, you're welcome to take. Is that all I need to do?
Sorry, you ready?
Sure, I just wanted to make sure I covered it
Yep,
all.
no, I want to make sure you're all set.
Go ahead.
Josh Roby, Deacon Lane and Hollis. So I wanted to address some of the concerns that were raised at the last board meeting about the proposed facilities update to the middle school for robotics. But I first wanted to catch you up on what the robotics team has done in the last month. It's been a pretty eventful month for us. So while we were here at the last meeting, the team was starting competition at New England District Championships. By the end of that event, we finished in 22nd place out of over 200 teams in New England. So that got us to World Championships. I will also point out that at that event, we won the Entrepreneurship Award, which was great work by our students, but they were also very proud to point out that the team had worked with the school board at the annual meeting to approve $98,000 to get a robotics space in the middle school. And that was something the judges mentioned when they gave us the award. That was part of their little speech when they give out the award. So that also qualified us to attend World Championships. As hopefully many of you have heard, we did really well at World Championships. So first, one of our, I don't think he's actually here because students are meeting tonight, but Cam Hallett, a junior at Hollis Brookline High School, won the Dean's List Award. This is an incredibly prestigious award. 10 students out of close to 100,000 in 100 different countries participating in FIRST Robotics, or FRC, win this award. Just to give you a quick example of how that elevates Hollis Brookline High School. Last year, there were 10 winners of that award. 9 of them applied to Yale, 8 of them were accepted. So that's the caliber of students that CAM is now among. In addition, then the team in competition, we wound up being selected as part of an alliance of 3 robots. We won our subdivision with us and a team from Michigan and a team from Southern Connecticut. And that allowed us to compete in the finals among the 6 subdivisions, where we finished 3rd overall. So best year we've had as a team. I think things are going really, really well. But I think it was important for you guys to understand that. Then I did want to address some of the concerns the last meeting. There was a concern about losing the wood shop and the practical skills that middle students get from industrial arts. The plan we presented does not take away the wood shop. There is still a wood shop, place for students to learn basic hands-on practical skills. There are tools that are not being used there. When we move things around, that resulting space would be used by robotics. We also, I know there's going to be some discussion of potentially of a new teacher. We're looking forward to working with that new teacher to help them with some of the newer technology that can also be taught. The new tools that we're hoping to purchase for the robotics team would be available to that teacher as well. And we're excited to know that we have a sponsor who is potentially willing to donate 3D printers to the middle school for that new tech ed position. There was also a concern about money, as always. I think it's important to understand that, in effect, we put the effort in, we stood up, and we handed the board a gift of nearly $100,000 that can be used to make HB education better without taking anything away from any of the other activities in the school, right? This doesn't count against budget, it's separate money. Finally, there was concern about curriculum changes, and I wanted to make it really clear that what we're talking about has nothing to do with curriculum, right? We proposed this at the same time. The curriculum changes are a result of Mr. P retiring, right? Everybody understands he was a great teacher, and I think all the kids miss him. But his retirement is what's driving potentially any changes in curriculum. It's potentially an opportunity for us as well, but the curriculum changes are separate, and I think it's also important that they be dealt with in parallel with any structural changes to make space for robotics. And the parallelization is important because the big concern now is time, right? We really want to get something, I think everybody does, that's going to be ready for school in September. If that isn't acted on very quickly, it won't be ready in time for September. I think we generally feel that the board needs to approve something at the next meeting in order to be able to do construction and have it ready for September. We've actually started talking to some construction experts, and their response right away is, wow, you're starting late, and that's now, and nothing can actually happen until the board approves the plan, which doesn't get approved till September. So, till June. So we want to make sure that the board goes into the June meeting with a full plan. And so if there are any other concerns you guys have, let us know, but what we're asking is that the board go ahead tonight and approve some money for an architect. I think that's the only thing that really blocks us from presenting a full plan. The rest of it is just work. I know Mr. Corey is more than willing to work with us. We're willing to put in the effort, but I think we do need that architect in order to present a full plan for June so that we can actually have something by September. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ken St. Hilaire, Hayden Road in Hollis, and I do better with a script, so I'm going to mostly read. Josh and I, as we prepared for this meeting, we both had written very similar remarks to present to you tonight, so I've updated mine to try to remove the overlaps in what we were saying, but I agree with everything that he had put forth. For me, lately it's been particularly frustrating that it seems that we have to continually reinforce to the board how the FIRST robotics program that we offer here in Hollis Brookline is not just an after-school activity. For many of our students, our FIRST team is their sport. It's their inspiration and the primary thing that defines their continued education and career path. And I'm not only talking about the students that go off to a four-year college. For many, our first team creates a pathway to them to a well-paying job as they continue their education through the community college system. Yet for all that this program does and provides for our students, it seems that we continually struggle to get the proper attention that the team needs. So many times in the past couple of years that I've been part of this facilities committee, I've heard someone say, "Yeah, I support robotics, but," and it's frustrating for me as a parent and a member of the community. Josh spoke about the team's recent success in Detroit, and the thing that I want to reinforce is the significance of Cam Hallett being named to the Dean's List for his contributions to the team and to the local community. As Josh mentioned, Cam was one of 10 students recognized worldwide from more than 94,000 FIRST Robotics high school students. To further put this into perspective, Cam is only the second New Hampshire student ever to be named to the Dean's List. And you'll be happy to hear that the other student was from Londonderry back in 2012. I don't yet think Cam realizes the magnitude of the opportunities that are now available to him as he looks towards his senior year. He is in very rare company. We always talk about FIRST being more than robots and how FIRST helps our students develop the skills that prepare them for college and beyond. But for me, the primary measure of our success is the success of our FIRST program is what our students accomplish after high school and for some after college. In my 9 years with the team, I've had the pleasure and the experience of so many success stories that I could repeat for you. But I'm going to share one with you from just this past week. My daughter is a product of this team. She was always a strong student with a fantastic work ethic. But with FIRST, it ignited a spark within her and set her down a path from which she's never returned. She now works for NASA with the Jet Propulsion Lab. And the first project that she worked on at JPL was launched last week aboard a SpaceX rocket and is now installed at the International Space Station. It's called OCO3 if you want to Google it and check it out. It's fascinating work. I can assure you as her dad that everything she's done and will do within her career can be traced directly back to the day she joined the FIRST Robotics team. What has truly set her apart are the skills that she acquired through FIRST that simply cannot be taught in the classroom. So the point I'm trying to make is I hope you really, really understand that this program is so much more to our students than just an after-school activity. So now back to the ask. The challenges that the team faces have been well documented over the past couple of years that this facilities group has been working. And as the team experiences growth due to its recent successes and due to the continued strength and expansion of the middle school program, these space and resource challenges will only increase. The proposal that we presented will address many of those challenges at a reasonable cost and with minimal impact. So we're asking the two things from the board tonight. First, we'd ask you to decouple any of the discussion about the technology curriculum from this project that will benefit the FIRST Robotics team. The only place that these two activities really overlap is in how the existing wood shop can be shared by both programs. There is clearly unused space and obsolete equipment in the existing space, as well as plenty of opportunity to create a more efficient layout that will benefit both teams and allow them to share the space. We can proceed with a project definition in parallel with the continued discussions about the curriculum without really impacting either one. And the second thing that we ask is that you authorize the Facilities Committee to go forward and prepare the detailed project plan that can be presented at the June meeting for discussion and approval. The development of the plan will definitely involve the services of a local architect, and so there will be some cost. But as Josh stated, our primary concern right now is that further delay in preparing a plan will jeopardize our ability to complete the work that would need to be completed over the summer while the school is not in session. So once again, I urge you to authorize this development for us to proceed with the plan. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name's Ed Hill. I live on Mountain Road, Brookline.
I don't have any prepared comments, so I'd just like to echo my support for the previous two speakers. Thank you, and thank you so much for the time that you volunteer with FRS. My daughter is involved with it, Alex Hill, and I am extremely grateful that she has an opportunity to work on this. From a personal perspective, I am a software engineering manager at BAE Systems. My company is extremely interested in supporting these sort of activities and encouraging people to get into STEM lines of work, whether it is, directly working with code or with mechanics on the robotics, or becoming involved in the management of this. From a personal perspective, I'm old enough, I've got gray enough hair that there was no robotics when I was in high school, but there was a bridge building competition back then, and I did get involved in that, and I got to represent my state at nationals for doing something far simpler, just building a simple balsa wood bridge that would support weights. I was very grateful to get a chance to do that, and based on that experience, I thoroughly get why this is a great thing for kids to get involved with, to get them into STEM. I've been a software engineer or have been working in some form of research for literally decades. I can say it's very difficult to find people that have these sorts of skills, and when we are lucky enough to find someone, these jobs pay well. I would encourage everyone to consider that this is a wonderful stepping stone into what I think is a very rewarding career. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Megan Strecker, Dupont Gould Road, Brookline, New Hampshire. So I am a member of Team 1073, and I actually joined this year. So when I was in 6th grade, there was an FLL team at CSDA, and that was my introduction to FIRST. And back then, I was like, okay, this is just some robots, all right. But then when I got into high school, I got to see how much of an impact it really was. I joined this team as a sophomore, which is the grade I am in now. And it's such a huge impact on my life. So I'm now the business lead, and I get to communicate with so many people on a daily basis. I get to go and interact with all these sources and all these things, and it's not just technical, which is what I want everyone to realize. And so the thing is that this shop, while I'm still not on the technical part of the team, it's very much a huge part of what we need to get done. So we have all these things, these off-season competitions, and these off-season competitions will allow us to go and teach these new students that we have and how we can go and integrate what we're doing into the new school year. So this is essentially our preparation, and it's such a huge part of what we need to get done. And then for the upcoming school year, we need to go and essentially establish how we're going to go and get more students to go and join the team, because we really want to go and establish more connections with the high school and with the school district in general. And this shop is the stepping stone to that point. And so we would really like to have it done before the school year starts. And that way we can go and talk to our freshmen. We can be like, hey, we just made this awesome shop, and we would love to tell you more about it. And so that's something that I find really important as a member of the team. There's just so many learning experiences, and that's what I want to say as a student point of view.
Thank you. That's it. Okay, thank you very much for your input. We'll move along with our agenda. Principal reports.
So I want to thank Josh for taking the crux to my board report that was on today and presenting it for me. Appreciate that. Once again, pulling through, not a problem. Appreciate it. I had the pleasure of watching the team at the districts for a little bit, and it would overcome some challenges, or to know that they overcame the challenges they did, and then to excel in the way that they did in Detroit was just a testament to the work that they all put in. And Megan was my guide for the district meeting, and it is, you do get a true sense of how it is more than robotics and how they present in the business side of things. It's very, just could not be more impressed. So congratulations to them. Other than that, the rest of my board report is available, and I'm happy to take any questions on it.
Thank you. Just a quick look at that then. I'd like to at least respond to you in the fact that you're talking about robotics and, make the statement that I really do hear what everyone's saying. I hear what Rick is saying about the success of the robotics team. To be honest, even if the robotics team hadn't been as successful as it was, it's still a great program and doing great work, and kids are learning great things. And so I think this board has taken the robotics team very seriously, or at least I do, and I believe most of us do. So I appreciate the input, and I appreciate the fact that you're reporting on that. Any other questions on Rick's report? Principals first and then athletic? Okay. Go ahead, Bob.
So just wanted to highlight, make a plug for our Arts Night and Empty Bowls event that will occur on Monday, May 20th. This is actually the 7th year that we've run this event. If you haven't been, I would encourage all members of our community, even if you don't have students at the middle school, to attend. Essentially, our students, we highlight a lot of the artwork that students have done throughout the year. We also provide opportunities for our students to demonstrate the work they've done in the performing arts. Essentially, what we do is students have made a bowl. This year, we changed things up. They've actually made it out of fabric this year, which is kind of interesting. And parents have the opportunity to come to school that evening and purchase the bowl, and they have an ice cream social, and the money that they raise goes to support the Brookline Food Pantry, as well as the Hollis Food Pantry as well. And in the past, we've raised several $1,000s. It's a wonderful event. I would encourage people to attend. The great thing about the event, it really it's a pop-in event. There's a lot of different activities going on at one time, so you have the opportunity to, walk around and engage with some of our students in some of the activities. So, and I'll entertain any questions that folks might have about anything else in my report.
Did you get ice cream?
Yeah.
It was ice cream.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great.
I got my own mic tonight.
We're a very quiet group today.
So I would just like to highlight one thing in particular in my athletics report, and that is the implementation of the new community service initiative that the Booster Club has put on called HB Helps. As you'll see in my report, the high school track team participated in a cleanup day in preparation for the Hollis Fast 5K road race, and they'll also be volunteering their time on race day as well. So this really is just the first step in developing this program, and we're looking forward to building that relationship with the Booster Club, hopefully at both the high school and the middle school, to give back to the community through our athletic teams. And I would be remiss if I did not say that the Booster Club golf tournament is next Friday, May 24th. There's still room for foursomes, so if anyone is interested, Cavs, I believe the website is cavsgolf.com. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Brian? Just one, Brian, all these coaching openings have been posted, I assume?
Yes, ma'am. The only one that may not be posted in-house yet, just because it's very new, is the cross-country head coach, but that will be posted within the next few days.
So if there aren't any other questions for principals or for Brian, athletic director, let me look at my outline, that will help me. Mm-hmm. Yes, right. Yep. So I need a motion. I need a motion that the board by roll call will go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, parentheses A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, and RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, C, to discuss a matter which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of a person other than a member of the body or agency itself.
So moved.
Krista, seconded by Beth. And I need a roll call vote, so can we start with you, Beth?
Yeah.
Beth, aye. Holly, aye.
Cindy, aye.
Okay, so that is carried, 4-0.
Yeah, I can give you.
So I was reading. I was reading the rec commission things. You need somebody, huh?
Yeah, do
You need a member? Like,
Yeah.
I might.
Yeah, we have an open seat.
I saw that.
Seriously.
So last night I was reading it. So let me think about it. What nights are you usually meeting?
Wednesdays. First Wednesday.
The first Wednesday? Okay. The third. So. All right, let me think about it.
That would be awesome.
But I mean, I'm here, so. Might as well get involved in something else.
Yeah. No, that would be great.
All right. I know Robin and Dave really well, so,
The other guys are good.
yeah. All right, I'll think about it and let you know for sure.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So we're gonna relieve Melissa her gym duties.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
would like to make, yes? Okay, ahead, Krista, you do it, go ahead.
Oh, are you here?
No, go ahead, I'd love to hear from you.
Can I just make an agenda adjustment
Sure.
in deliberations to, or
Discussion.
discussion, I'm sorry, to add the requests that we've received?
Yes. So, make a motion that the agenda be adjusted as requested by Krista, well, as requested. So you're making a motion to adjust the agenda to add the robotics question and answers to
Yeah, sorry, but do
discussion.
we need to come back into public?
Did we do that? So
When we went out there, do we
Right.
need to come back in here?
we
Or
came
we
back
just-
in.
But
I
we
think
did.
we just
Okay.
come back in.
All right.
We made the motion there and we came back into public.
Okay.
So we were in public when we walked in. Okay, one more time. Krista has made a motion that the agenda be adjusted to put into discussion the request that we received from robotics
In public.
in
Discussion,
public
yeah.
discussion. Is there a second? Okay. Any discussion of that adjustment? Okay. All in favor? Okay, 4-0. Okay, great. So after data governance plan, we'll have robotics discussion. Okay, so at this point, we're way ahead of schedule, so let's try to stay that way. It's my first real meeting, well, my second meeting. Okay, Facilities Committee?
Sure. I just wanted to provide the board with an update on the turf field. There has been a lot going on recently. On May 2nd, I communicated with Ty and Bond, and they have filed all the required paperwork and responses with the Department of Environmental Sciences for the state. Gove Environmental is the company that we utilize to do the environmental study. They came back the week prior to school vacation, based on our discussions at the Conservation Committee, and reviewed the questions that were asked with regards to the wetland, and they have submitted all of their paperwork to the state. Teague & Bond recommended going out to bid, as they feel quite confident that the final wetlands permit will be issued. So on Thursday, May 3rd, Teague & Bond recommended a potential manager for the project, who will be coming in and interviewing with Kelly and I the week of the 27th. On May 6th, Kelly sent out the bid packets to all the companies, local and across New England, that expressed interest. On May 9th, we had a mandatory pre-bid meeting where all the vendors came together and did a site walk, so they've actually seen the actual property, where they can lay their equipment down, all the supplies and of that nature. So that has taken place. Bids will come in Friday, May 24th. It's a public opening at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And at that point, I'd be working with the chair and members of the board, as I said earlier, to schedule a date, which I'd like to look at before we leave tonight, so that we could have a date on the calendar, because it would actually require the board, once we have the bids, we'll make a recommendation for the bid, but it would require a board vote so that we could move forward with that. So we're approaching the stages, and as much as I would hope to be a little further along than we are today, in one sense, it's not going to be a bad thing that we probably won't have kids in school when we start construction, because there'll be a lot of major equipment coming in for a relatively short period of time, and then work will continue on the field itself. And I'm happy to answer any questions or anything that may be there.
Great, thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Next up is our revenue and expense update. Linda, you have the floor.
So we last reported end of March, and we were in good shape then, and we're in even better shape now. We're showing on the expense side a balance of $403,277, which is the amount of the budget we're expecting not to have to use at this point. That was about $15,000 higher than last time, so we're in good shape. A couple of lines that changed more dramatically were the line that says instructional staff support has a balance of $98,404. That is significantly higher than last time, and most all of that is because of the professional development stipend and the teacher professional development reimbursements have all come in a lot lower than what we budgeted. And in the facilities line, the balance of $45,000, most of that is due to the snow removal that we did not have to use this year. We budgeted $88,000 and only needed to use, or did not need $30,000 of that. So moving down to the revenue side, we're showing a balance of $79,151. Again, that's higher than last time, so we're in good shape. The only significant difference here between this report and the end of March is the line for Medicaid. It's showing a $20,000 deficit, and that is due to an extremely high number of rejections of claims statewide. As the Director of Student Services explained to me, the rules have expired and temporary rules were put in place, causing, just in our SAU, our 3 districts, over 1,000 rejections based on how they've redefined the rules. So, looking at the total unreserved fund balance of $482,428, and then funding all of our trust and contingency, we're left with a fund balance of $73,428, compared to in March we reported $50,050. So we're still in really good shape, and I'm happy to take questions.
Yes, I had a couple of questions. I think you kind of answered one. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my computer sideways just because I was on here. I think you already answered the one. I was just curious about the, I'm sorry, it was the instructional support. No, it wasn't. It was the professional development. So you answered that, I think, just why we had so much. It's not because we're cutting back on that or anything.
No,
it's super important, but it's just the funds that you've got.
Right. So there's a $3,000 stipend that maybe Gina can talk about more specifically, but we had budgeted just for that alone $87,000 and only needed to use $30,000 of that.
Okay. Awesome.
So I don't know if there's anything else you can add to that, but
I just want to make sure. I was just curious because that was a big
Right.
change in what you expected. And the only other question I had, just, and again, forgive me because I'm new here, but the vocational program, that I had a question just on the vocational program line and on the transportation. So there's much lower student involvement in that.
So are you talking about the transportation and expenses?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
in expenses. So also, but there was also a lower, the third line vocational program. It says the explanation was because of lower number of vocational ed students than budgeted for. I was just curious.
Well, so there's 2 things in the transportation line. We are showing the $75,000 over budget, and that was because of vocational ed transportation, where we were planning on leasing vans, and that plan has kept getting postponed. And I don't know more details on that, maybe Superintendent Corey does, but I know that deficit in transportation is because of vocational not being able to use those vans.
Sure, I was just curious because, we have the one spot where, we didn't spend as much because we had a much lower student population in the vocational ed, which I'm curious of why there's so much lower population. But the other part was why, if there's a lower amount, why we were so over. So it seems like if we had way more vocational students than we expected, I would expect a big overage in the budget for transportation. But
right.
They're the opposite. So I was just curious.
It's totally because of the vans. We had actually originally budgeted enough to cover the transportation to use our buses, but we didn't think we were going to need to.
Sure.
So,
okay. And that kind of makes sense if that part makes sense. And then I guess my other question you may not be able to answer tonight, but just in general, why there's so much lower why there was lower participation.
I don't think it was significantly lower though, so I don't know where you're
maybe,
where you're
no,
looking
just
at.
a lower number. It just a lower number. It was
here.
Oh, on the explanation page.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm still looking at the number page.
No,
So-
sorry, I was looking at both. I was going back and forth between the two. So I was just curious why there was lower. And that was really what prompted the question, is because it seemed like it should be the opposite.
right at Principal Barton.
So the numbers with the voc ed students ebb and kind of flow. One of the challenges, and I think what's one of the things that'll probably get one of the many things that will get looked at in the best instructional practices committee is the schedules. A student going out to a vocational school is missing a significant amount of school, and it just depends on the students. Sometimes we have students that don't care about that aspect of it and are willing to make that sacrifice, and then other years we just don't. They want to be here more. So it kind of comes and goes for the most part. Yep, it's a fair question. Yep.
It's the lease, because we can't get the vans yet.
Right.
So we're waiting on the vans so that we'll be providing our own transportation. And we weren't expecting them to take quite as long as they've taken. Right? Is that a fair statement? Yeah.
And the vans too could help us with the scheduling piece too, because it's easier to run our own.
And then maybe we'll have more kids using that.
Do we know where we are with it? I was going to, Andy was going to say something, but do you know where we are with it?
Just to refresh people's memories, there was a massive fire in Tennessee, which is one of the places where you make cargo vans. And since we were off ordering very few of those vans, we weren't put on what I'll call the priority list. So Kelly reported just Tuesday that we expect them in the next week to 10 days, just in time to close the year. But at the same time, they'll be here to start the year as well. Because the other piece is to look at them for athletic teams, golf. Some of those teams can take advantage of it as well.
What size passengers, or how many?
8 Yeah.
8.
Plus your driver.
And we're getting 2 more?
2.
2 more.
Yep.
Okay, great. Any more questions for Linda? Great, thank you. At this point, we can move to the middle school master schedule update.
So we'll have Bob start.
Great.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes. So I'll start. I thought I'd provide a little context as to why we're looking to make adjustments to the master schedule, and then walk you through the process that we've undertaken this year. And then I'm going to hand it over to Gina and Carol that are going to look at where we've landed in terms of coming up with an alternative master schedule. So in terms of the why are we looking at the master schedule, we typically look at the master schedule every other year. We've done so on multiple occasions during my tenure. We've made modest adjustments. We adjusted for late start PLC, and we adjusted when we moved the schedule from 7:20 to a 7:35 start. So naturally, we will continuously look at the schedule to make sure that it maximizes learning for students. There was some urgency to looking at the master schedule last year. We undertook a program evaluation of special ed. We did this because there were significant changes to the reauthorization of IDEA, which resulted in us needing to look at our programs. And as a result of that program evaluation, one of the recommendations that was made was that we look at the master schedule. In fact, the language in the report that we were given said to determine a master schedule that is inclusive to all. Really what we're looking at is an access issue, that our students are having a challenging time accessing the general education curriculum because of the master schedule. And what I wanted to do is just sort of paint the picture. I wanted to share a copy of our current master schedule, so that you can really see why it's problematic when we're trying to deliver services. This master schedule really is not one master schedule for the whole school. If you look at this document, you're going to see we really have 4 master schedules. We have 1 for each team. When we are trying to deliver services to students in special education, it makes it really challenging to deliver school-wide interventions when you have 4 master schedules. And so I'll give you a real concrete example. Our Read 180 program. It is a wildly successful research-based reading program that has brought struggling readers up to grade level. In order to deliver that intervention, we essentially have to put all of the Read 180 kids on one team because we have 4 different schedules. That's problematic because oftentimes when we're placing kids on teams, we place them on a variety of factors. And when we put Read 180 on one team, we're basing their placement on one factor, and that's their reading intervention. There's other interventions. We offer math interventions, executive function interventions, and the delivery of those services is very challenging when you don't have uniformity to your master schedule. An additional challenge with the schedule that you see before you is it's a waterfall schedule. So a student may have math the first period of the day on a Monday, and then they may not have math again until Tuesday afternoon. We work with a number of service providers that work throughout our district: speech, OT, reading support services. They have to navigate with 5 other schools in the district. And when our schedule is constantly changing, it causes significant disruption, usually to the student's schedule, because they have to be pulled for services at times, and they might miss a portion of a course. So the delivery of special education services can be greatly impacted by the waterfall schedule. And then a third factor that really, outside of special education, we have a lot of kids that are accelerating. And one of the options that we have had in the past is we'll have middle school students take high school courses. It is incredibly difficult to do that with our current schedule. It is very challenging with the schedule that we have to allow students access to high school courses. And as Gina and Carol will explain, the schedule that we're looking at will allow for students to have greater access to high school courses. Another example in that regard is next year we have 25 students that are taking an accelerated math in 7th grade, or what I call super accelerated. They'll take Algebra 1 as a 7th grader. Our current schedule makes it incredibly challenging to be able to schedule those students. It's going to create some imbalances with the teams, because we will basically have to put those 25 accelerated students on one team because we have 4 separate master schedules. Those are just a handful of the problems that we encounter with the master schedule. There's also equity issues with plan periods. Our specialists do not have a 45-minute plan as dictated in their contract. They have a 20-minute plan because of the way the schedule works. So there's some equity issues. So just quickly to take you through process, and then I'll hand it over to Gina. So in September, our instructional leadership team began the year by looking at the special education evaluation and making some priorities. And one of the priorities that they identified was looking at the current master schedule. So they began looking at the master schedule by going out and reviewing the master schedule. I kid you not, of pretty much every middle school in the state of New Hampshire, either by contacting them or going to their website. What they learned is every school is different, and it's not as simple as taking one school schedule and making it your own. They continued throughout the year to come up with draft schedules. In January, we sent a representative group of teachers across disciplines, teams, and grade levels, along with our assistant superintendent and Carol and one of our board members, to be able to take a whole day to attend a New England League of Middle Schools conference where they simply pretty much locked themselves in the room for a day to try to figure out how do we come up with a master schedule. There have been several rough drafts, some that worked well, some that did not. And as a result of a lot of the work that Patty Flynn and Carol and Gina have led, we have come up with what I would say is probably the best alternative to our current master schedule. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Gina, who's going to talk about where we've landed with that.
Okay, so the proposed schedule was in the board packet, and you can see that this schedule removes some features that currently exist. It removes the waterfall feature of periods flowing from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, etc. It also moves rock into the middle of the day so that all students have access to the rock curriculum, because they'll already be in the building and wouldn't necessarily show up later. But this schedule here, because you have it's an 8-period day plus lunch, all 8 periods are equivalent. So now we are able to provide services for students on any given period, and we're not just limited to period classes versus core classes. So we essentially double the opportunities that students can receive services. This also provides equity to classes and to programs. So there's no difference between what a core class is or a period class or the specials, et cetera. So all of your courses have a long block, and they have 3 shorter periods. This also creates equity amongst the staff. So all teachers would have the same amount of plan, and the teams would still be structured as teams, and there would still be CPT time for those teachers as dictated by the contract. So this still is able to hang on to some of the important features of what makes a middle school a middle school. We looked through many schedules, and there is no perfect schedule. There just isn't one. But we feel that this meets, checks off the vast majority of the boxes of what we're looking to. So we are able to better meet the needs of students, all students. Some of the negatives that Bob was talking about, I don't have to, or Bob doesn't have to, or Tim, I guess I should say, doesn't have to place all of the 7th grade Algebra 1 students on one team. That wouldn't be required. So those students can be spread across 2 different teams so that we're meeting their needs maybe socially or for another reason rather than just because of the math class they're taking. And the same is true for Read 180. If we identify a student that might benefit from Read 180 services in October, but they're already on a team that doesn't have access to Read 180, right now we can't provide that service effectively. So this schedule alleviates that concern. There are some concerns that have been brought forward. Some feel that an 85-minute block is a long period of time, and some feel that a 39-minute block on your PLC Friday is a short period of time. And I think that this is a perfect time to take a look at this as we've started the Instructional Best Practices Committee. We're looking at what does best practice look like. So whether it's a 72-minute period that we currently have or an 85, students need to have a class that's broken up and multiple activities taking place, learning in different ways. So, I think it's an opportunity to learn and to grow.
And if I could add to what Gina's saying too, the other thing that was really important for the work of the committee was to ensure that we were not decreasing instructional time. So while there might be some concern about an 85-minute block and the 39, when you look at it as a collective, as a week, it's the same amount of instructional time. It's just really in how you look at it.
Right, so the number of seat time minutes, if you will, for a student in math or a student in English is exactly the same. The other nice feature that I seem to like, for a core class, you met 3 times a week. Now all classes are going to meet 4 times a week with this proposed schedule. So there's just a little bit more continuity for some students who just need another crack at it at a given week. So, like I said, I think there are some definite benefits to this proposal.
And just the one other thing that I'd like to add, when you talk about what makes a middle school versus a junior high, heterogeneity is a huge piece of the middle school experience. And it really is a challenge now to be able to have heterogeneity in our classrooms or on our teams when one team has students in Read 180. One team has the super accelerated algebra classes. It's creating issues with heterogeneity that we need to address, because heterogeneity is a quintessential component of middle school, and we're losing it.
So this proposed schedule maintains the team approach.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Like a sacred cow, right? Like
Yes.
that's what you guys are holding on to as what makes a middle school besides heterogeneity. My understanding is having that team approach, having a group of teachers really aware of 100 students, and those are their students, and they share them as a team.
The only difference is we've gone from a 5-person team to a 4-person team.
Okay.
They'll still have a quarter of their tech ed, their art, their computer, their health, but that specialist, which is only on the team currently for 1 quarter and they rotate, that person is just part of their regular schedule. We can still schedule those students on the team to a particular course, but in terms of teachers getting together in what we call common planning time to meet every day, it will go from the 4 core with the rotating specialists to just the 4 core. So there is a slight modification, but I would argue it really does maintain teaming, which again is another really important part of middle school.
And what does the rotating specialist, do they meet together? Or?
They will. That's one of the constraints that we're working on, is we would create common planning time. So that common planning time, the specialist would meet, the music department would meet for common planning time. You know, our technology education teacher and our computer teacher would meet. And quite honestly, I think there may be greater value in having that. So there will still be common planning time for the various groups. It's just, it will look different.
So, in the past, when a parent went in for made a phone call or whatever and met with the team, they would have met with whoever was on that person's team for that quarter.
Yep.
So you would meet with English, science, math, social studies, and then you'd meet with art or health, depending on who was, and that person will no longer be in those meetings.
Yeah,
They're meeting in their own way, working on curriculum together with, health and PE and
there may be some opportunity to schedule them during that time as well, but there's not a guarantee, so we want to be careful about that. Yeah, they would have to provide written input.
Okay. No, I'm not concerned about the lack of input. I mean, I always appreciated their input because it's always great to hear from a person who, because I'm not speaking from personal experience because I've never gone in to talk about what I know, but I just, but it's, the core teachers are really what people are focused on as well in those parent meetings.
And right now, that's a challenge under our current schedule is that we'll have parents who will request a whole team meeting with all of their child's teachers. Our world language teacher and our PE teacher and our music teacher are teaching when the core teachers have their common planning time. So even right now, under the model we have, we're not able to get everyone at the table.
A couple of things just to add. First, I can definitely echo the need for the change. As Bob, I sub on your campus and I can't find students, and I ask your support, your staff to help find students, and they can't find them. Yeah. It's tough. It takes us a couple tries. 4
master schedules.
It is, yep. And even experienced folks up there struggle with this, so I understand that. I want to say thank you too for bringing this, and I know I keep saying the same things, but anytime we can have this to compare, if there's a proposed change, to have it in our board book so that we can see the old and see the new together. Just because I'm a very, very visual person. And then on that same note, I think something that threw me off looking at the proposed, unless and please correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm crazy, but some of the blocks are the same amount of minutes, but some are bigger, some are smaller. Yeah, and so you're throwing me off and making me nervous saying, wait, no, some of these classes are getting so much more time and some are less, but I'm sitting here calculating and doing the math and it is things, so I was just going to encourage you maybe to either put the minutes, just for at least for the draft form, so everybody understands how many minutes each class are, or maybe adjust the boxes just for us very visual people that think you're shorting people.
I thought the same thing back.
Okay, I know. I just want to make sure I'm not crazy, but so it does, and I believe you that it's equitable. I just, when I look at this, it doesn't look equitable. Absolutely. And so if I had the minutes or something on there, because it's a little hard to see that because I did not sit and add up every single one. I just added enough to know. Okay.
I've added many minutes on many schedules.
And
I just, as a visual person, we all learn differently, and I'm definitely a visual and numbers person. So to just have it spelled out for me kind of helps. And then obviously, when you come forward with it, you don't have to keep it on your schedule going forward, but it might just help everybody to understand what we're looking at. And
absolutely, that's helpful.
Yeah, and the only other question I had, just going from here, I know how much positive feedback I hear about rock, and I do notice, it's in the middle of the day. My only curiosity is, when rock's all at the beginning of the day and kids are late, they're not missing instructional time, they're missing rock time, which that's a pro and a con depending on how you look at it. But also rock is all at the same time. So when you have important information to put out, you're able to use that rock time to have the whole school together.
Yeah.
But this takes that away. So I was just curious, if Rock, you felt that it was truly better, or maybe it's the only place you can fit it in is lunch, but I just was curious about Rock.
Yeah, there's a little trade-off in terms of being able, right now when we have an issue, in short notice, pull the whole school together and there's no impact to the schedule. We'll have grade level rock, so we can do that by grade level, but we would have to take opportunity time out of, to be able to make that adjustment. What I would argue is, having in my previous school, we had our advisory program, back to back with lunch. And as an advisor, I liked that because we would start some great conversations that needed more than 20 minutes, and I didn't feel the urgency to kick kids out because they were just going to lunch. And there was also times where kids would be like, hey, if we, have a good week and on Friday, could we order out, or, could we walk to Monument? And, getting some permission slips out, might afford people the opportunity to do that. And then the other thing I would say is there are some people who I think believe that, rock is not instructional, and so if your child is tardy to school and they miss some rock, it's okay. I disagree. I would argue that the most important thing we do as middle-level educators is advisory, is building relationships with kids. And so if having it at lunch is going to increase participation, then I think that's the way to go.
Absolutely, and I agree. And it's tricky though to me just because it's also the start of the day, because I see so much value in rock. So rock is the way you start, and you start fresh every day in the same, and you have that same advisor with you every day. So I feel like it's a little bit of a loss there, but I mean there's gains and losses.
There is, it's trade-offs.
I will say from going to the workshop that rock was something that I heard, I was mostly listening, but it was clear to me that the staff values it so much and wanted it as part of the schedule. So it's so tricky to fit. I mean, I've never done anything like that before, and watching the pieces of the puzzle that they had to deal with. So the fact that it's still here is great, and yeah. So we're not voting on this tonight, right? Are there any other questions? This will be on our agenda for next month for a vote. Great. Thank you. All right, next. Curriculum, tech ed discussion. That would be.
That is me.
That is Gina again. Thank you, Gina.
You're welcome. All right, so I thought I'd just start by pulling straight from ED 306, talking about what we are required to do. And our requirements are kind of broad, and so we can meet those requirements in a variety of ways. And so what I did was I pulled the ED 306 and then in that italicized font tried to explain to you what we do here at Hollis Brookline Middle School and how we're going to accomplish these items. You also see that we can teach a variety of subjects that make up tech ed. And so our focus here would be energy and power technologies, manufacturing, and construction, and then a couple of other pieces would be lightly touched upon, maybe more strongly by certain groups than others. Some of these are proposed ideas and won't necessarily be in place. We have just made the nomination for our new tech ed teacher, and our new tech ed teacher has a very strong woodworking background, and it was very impressive to us, and we're very excited to have him on board. And so potentially some of these might shift a little bit, but we're talking about supply and demand. So if a particular class is looking for something, or if we wanted to look at making bowls for empty bowls, we need to create X number of bowls. How are you going to do that? What happens to cost when you increase the amount of wood that you're purchasing, et cetera? Taking a look at more than just making a bowl, but thinking big picture and moving into sort of a manufacturing thought process, if you will. But hands-on, certainly, regardless of the tools being utilized, we're looking to certainly always have the students hands-on. So even if we are, which we are long-term in the next, I would say, 3 years, looking to implement the use of CAD prior to putting something together and actually building it, rather than maybe just drafting on paper. And we're also looking to do some laser cutting. So not everyone's potentially on the table saw, that might differ by student interest, student skill level, etc. But we're all looking to make some cuts and put some pieces of materials together. Also, the materials might differ. But we're utilizing hands-on. We also are intentionally identifying when we're integrating math into the work and when we're integrating the engineering design process. And how do you communicate your final product? You're going to be using your skills in ELA, English Language Arts. Certainly safety is an important aspect, and part of that would be new equipment that was safe for students to utilize so they could be more independent. Also, group process skills. So how do you create leaders within a small group, and how do you establish certain roles and facilitate the transition between roles and students and provide feedback. And then finally, we integrated Naviance software at the middle school last year.
This year. Yeah.
Okay, it was in last year's budget. So this
Yeah.
year. And then how do you utilize Naviance to create, to open the doors for students potentially in the tech ed fields, and collaborate between our school counseling department and this department. So those are our requirements, and that's how we plan to achieve them. And then I also sent along the starting draft of a scope and sequence. We have 45 days to accomplish what we're going to accomplish in grade 7 and 45 days to do the same in grade 8. So what do those 45 days look like? Certainly we don't do anything without starting with safety and tools. A potential would be to look at bridge building in grade 7 and sound amplification in grade 8. How do you amplify sound? What tools can you utilize to make a speaker, if you will? Certainly using your hands, but maybe Linda wants to use plexiglass, and maybe Cindy wants to use straight wood, and maybe we're utilizing different wood products. But that's the benefit of being able to sort of explore, not necessarily utilize the same materials, a little bit of your interest level, and also a little bit of what materials you feel most comfortable utilizing, of course with the teacher direction. And so I identified what standards would be addressed with these units for the 2 grade levels, and the standards are identified at the end of this document. So this is really just the start. I do have plans to work with the new tech ed teacher to really nail down exactly what it is that grade 7 and grade 8 will look like next year, and then also year 2 and year 3, because I think there will be a transition over time to utilizing more of the high-tech aspects within the framework of what we know and love already right now. So that's all. Do you have any questions about any specific aspect of the curriculum?
We're going to see this several times again, right? After you talk with the new, we'll see it again. This isn't the only time we'll see it.
You can request access to any curriculum at any time.
That's what I was curious too, just because getting that input, I'm so excited that you have somebody now in place for that's getting that feedback, and just more time because so that's why I wasn't sure what you're looking for us to approve today, or if there is more time to. Because I know I keep saying the same thing, but I want to see the old curriculum too right next to it so I can see, how it's changed. So I just was curious what we're approving.
We're not approving anything.
Okay.
This is just informational to kind of
Just
take you along
wanted
the journey
Gotcha.
of where we're going.
Perfect.
I think the public will ask us, are they still going to build the bridge? Are they still going to make the marble maze? Are they still going to do the shelf? So some of those questions that we can answer would be, sounds like some things we'll be doing. We're still going to be working with wood if
We're going to be working with wood and other products. Some of our projects will be different. And I would argue some of them are very exciting.
And I would argue too that teachers are given a curriculum and said these are the standards that you need to teach. The activities that the teacher decides to engage in, really, that falls, I think, under the autonomy of the teacher. I feel like it's really been impressed upon the candidate about some of like the things that students have been doing that have been pretty successful, and whether it's that exact project or something along the same lines. But I would say like we've never really dictated to somebody, you will do this project. But given the candidate, I think we're going to be very impressed, in terms of the evolution and taking us to the next level.
I totally appreciate all that. It's just that we're very much public people who
Yeah.
like walk through the grocery store, and this has been a topic because the teacher who's retiring has been with us for so long and has made such an impression on so many students in a positive way, and so just want to make sure that we can sort of have a little bit of an answer. And it sounds like there's still there's still some plans to do that, but yes, the teacher who's coming in has the autonomy to make the decisions about the projects that they want to make.
And I would say, why limit ourselves? If there's a better project out there that is an evolution of a marble maze or a box, let's see it,
Oh, I want another one of those shelves. Like, can't have too many of those.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Okay, as Gina said, we're not approving this. This is just informational. Okay. Next. Oh, I've been looking forward to this for like days. The data governance plan. Thank you, Carol, for coming in.
You're welcome. Gina's going to
set up while we wait to hear from them. This is like breathtaking work.
For the 1920 calendar?
Yeah, I mean, the class, are you going to do that this year?
Oh, for the schedule?
Okay. Okay.
I'm not sure.
That's fine.
So before she starts, I just want to start off by saying that, many of the board members have come to me over the past year to talk about HB 1612. And what are we doing to ensure that we're in compliance? That you receive a lot of communication from School Board Association, and I assured you that we were doing a lot of work. And let me reiterate that we have done a great deal of work. And Rich Raymond, Kelly Seeley, Carol Tyler, and I have weekly meetings, sometimes 3 times a week meetings to talk about different aspects of this. And Carol's been so integral to all of this. I would also say that prior to the bill being put into place, we already started the wheels in motion. We started the organization. We started identifying some aspects that we just wanted to shore up as a district. So as a result, we were in a very good place when we were sort of forced to start working toward this. So I just wanted to start off by saying that and say thank you to Carol for all of her work in this area.
Thanks, Gina. So as Gina said, our process for looking at student data insecurity and staff data insecurity really began in 2016 when Gina came on board as assistant superintendent and the position of database manager was created. We sat down that summer and began reviewing all our district software, who manages the software, and the roles, administration within those pieces of software. Things that we decided we really need to look to review were what information do we collect? Where is that information stored? Who has access to it? And how is it protected? So that was started in 2016. Then, fast forward to 2018, HB 1612 came into place and was signed by Governor Sununu. When that was signed into law, it just expedited the process that we had already began. So we just worked with that law and the different components of the law, and then we started building our data security framework. So I can actually do it. Does it? Right. Okay. There we go. So within the software that we already had, we looked at roles-based security. We assigned permissions to access to data based on those roles. We updated an acceptable use agreement that we had had in the district for several years. We made it much more complex and included staff into that acceptable use agreement, and then had all staff and students sign it. We also spent about 18 months ago started a software inventory. We basically created a list of every piece of software, both licensed, unlicensed, web tools, Chrome extensions, that we thought people in the district used. Part of the law is that we need to inventory, review, and vet all our software applications. There we go. So we sent out a list to every staff member in the district, showing them this list that we compiled, and then asking them to note on this list if they use the software, what grade levels, what district that they were in, and then also ask them to add any software that they used in their classrooms as curricular resources, as for student logins, and add to this list. And 6 months later, we had a pretty thorough list of all the software that was used in the district. Now that we had the list, we created a rubric to look at every piece of software and decide what our vetting process was going to be. So the rubric we looked at talked about if the software met privacy standards, if it required a student login, what would that look like? Did it require date of birth? Did it contribute to the curriculum, or was it, did it have targeted marketing? Did it add to the curriculum, or did it distract with ads? And if there was a cost, and if so, the cost of it, and if it needed to be budgeted on a yearly basis. So with those factors in mind, we started vetting every piece of software on that list. When we were also looking at that list, especially with our licensed software, we wanted to standardize how information was uploaded. So if a teacher is creating accounts for students, we wanted to make sure that the student names were maintained their privacy level. So we came up with templates for protecting that student information. We also, part of the law is that we need to publish all this information, our software inventory list, our acceptable use agreement, and our enrollment procedures. We also, at the end of June of 2018, supplied software training for all staff. And in that software training, we focused on when they access software, that the software must have a privacy pledge. If it has a privacy pledge, that software was more or less geared towards students, and we knew that that would be acceptable for them to use. We went over what they could do when they were creating online accounts. But then again, I was referring to the privacy and keeping that personally identifiable information private. And then we also, when we were vetting, when the site wasn't really geared to students in 13 or below, then we would allow teachers to use them as curricular resources only. After we vetted all the sites and had that software listed, we knew that new sites would need to be vetted, so we created a form for all staff that they could fill out this form, for any new resource they wanted to use, and we meet weekly, review the software, and then get back to the teacher on if the software is going to be, has been vetted and approved. The next piece of the law that we tackled was to make those protocols for our district software use available to the public. And that information is on our website under Information Technology. And our technology and student privacy use guidelines are here, as well as our software list, our acceptable use agreement, and then our FERPA regulations. And this is what our software list looks like. This took us about 18 months to gather this data. We looked at every single privacy policy that is listed on the site. It has tabs across the bottom that show our licensed software, free tools and websites, curricular resources, Chrome extensions, and our library databases. Then the final piece of the law that we worked on is our data governance plan. We worked on this, the four of us, to develop the things that we needed to look at, the purpose and the intent of what that governance plan would look like. We looked at data life cycles. We looked at data retention. When we have student information and they graduate, how long do we have to keep those records? And then again, when software is on an internal server and that server is no longer in use, how do we clean that up? How do we wipe it clean? How do we recycle that piece of information to ensure that that data is not leaving the district? Then finally, the last piece of the data governance plan is we needed to provide critical incident response for any data breach and the steps that we would follow and the protocols put in place for that, including internal, external communication. And that is in that data governance plan that I believe is all in your board packets. And then the last piece is policy work. There are still policies regarding student data that are reflected in the law that not every district in SAU 41 has currently. And then finally, the final steps are by the law states that we have to complete a network audit, a security audit, including a risk assessment. We need a funding source for that because it's not free. And then our ongoing work is vetting sites, reviewing the approved sites that teachers are bringing forth that they want to use in their curriculum, and then the continuous data retention and storage that needs to go on as long as we have a school district here. So that was the last 12 to 18 months of our work regarding HB 1612. Are there questions?
Wow.
Thank you.
That's a lot of work.
It's a lot.
It was, and it continues to be a lot. Yeah.
It does.
There is no better reading than a privacy policy.
Yeah.
That's why I was
And there
wondering,
are
how
hundreds.
often do they change them? It says that you have to update them. How often do you have to go back to a website, I mean, to see if they've updated it? Or do you get notifications?
Yeah, a lot of times they'll give you notifications. If it's licensed software, we absolutely get notifications. The free tools and websites that teachers use, that's a little trickier. And we just have to, with due diligence, check as much as we can. But we did read every privacy policy, every term of use before we put it on that list. That's, and some are, dozens of pages before we posted it on our website that it was an approved piece of software.
That's amazing. Well done.
Yeah.
And just so the board knows, this, according to the state, does not have a financial impact.
That's right.
I just want you to know that there's no financial impact of 18 months of work or the required tests when this was passed as a law.
Unfunded mandates, my favorite.
Yes.
I did have one question, and it could be completely user error, but when I was reviewing this and looking through it, I went through the steps. I can actually scroll back on the slide, but it was the slide, maybe it doesn't have a number, but it's the one that has the SAU 41 software list, and you had the perfect arrows to show us and everything. So when I did that, and clicked on the software list, I didn't have a software list, but I might have been using a tablet. I'm not sure if that impacts it, but for me, when I went to review it, I couldn't see that. And so I was just curious, and again, it could be a user, it could be me, or it could have been because I was on a tablet maybe?
No, you mean on the website?
Yeah.
Okay, there's 2 places you can access it.
And I went right through with where you guys had, I'm not online right now, so I can't show you right now, but, you know, I went to the SAU site, went through, clicked on exactly there.
And it's here as well, so there's 2 different links.
Okay, and I know I clicked on the helpful link is where I clicked, and but it didn't come up, but again, I don't know if it was just my bad luck or I didn't.
It could be, you know, it could be
Well, maybe,
a
like I
broken
said,
link issue. Sometimes,
sure,
you know, that
sure.
does happen.
And I tried a couple times, but again, I'm on a tablet a lot, and on Apple. Yep. Yep, that's exactly how I went, and then I use the link under the helpful links on the far right when it pops up for you. Yeah, and so that's kind of what I remember seeing was something along that line. So see how it's not really a list?
That is interesting.
Okay, so it's not user error. That's
I think I know what
but
I do know what happened.
Okay,
There.
that was up for months.
Yes.
No, I believe you.
It
I
was.
really believe you. But when I went to look for it, it wasn't there. And then
Thank you for pointing it out.
Yes,
because
no,
that's
there was some training, website training this week, and I think the link was broken.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just want to make sure it wasn't.
And I'll make sure
and if
it's-
it was like a, you know, sometimes
Yeah.
you can't view from a tablet
No,
or
no,
different
no.
devices, but
Yeah.
just want to make sure. So I didn't test any of the others, but that one I couldn't find. So I'm sorry. But
No,
thank you.
thank you, because it was there. Any other questions?
How often do teachers submit to you a new website that they might want to use, or how's that process?
Yeah, so it varies. Some will submit 20 at a time.
Weekly.
Weekly, yeah. So we meet weekly and we review them every Thursday.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have 3 to review and sometimes we have 30 to review, if that gives you an idea. Sometimes it's, you know, Hollis. See, another piece of this is not only do we have to identify what we're utilizing for more of like a right to know, what our students have access to or will be working with. So if Hollis Elementary is using it 4 to 6, but now Brookline Elementary wants to use it 4 to 6, they have to request that, and then we have to approve it for the different district, even though we've vetted the site. So sometimes it's an easier one to review, and others it's, you know, we have to.
How many do you have to reject? I mean, are there ones that the teachers can't do the curriculum
Yes.
because they want to?
Yep, absolutely. So there are some that we reject for a variety of reasons. Some of that age 13 is that critical age. So middle school, we can't guarantee that. Well, because they're not all of our students are 13 in the middle school. So if it's a 13 and over, we will require specific parent permission to utilize that piece of software. And so there's an additional permission slip. And those are identified with an asterisk that you will be able to see as soon as we fix
The broken link.
broken link. But so there's that. Sometimes there's just so many pop-ups that it's a complete distraction, and there's no. I determine that it's not a benefit to the curriculum, and then it just becomes a distraction. Or if there's another tool that we use that accomplishes the same thing. You know, so there are. I mean, those are the pieces of the rubric that we look at, but there are a variety of reasons why we might say no.
Yeah, another no would be targeted marketing. Once you create a student login, if the site will, you know, in their privacy statement says we will, you know, release your email address or your login information to a third-party site, that's a no. Yep.
So you have to evaluate this for each district. You can't do it for the SAU, correct? Why?
Because one piece of it, well, sometimes it's different. So something that might be deemed appropriate for high school is just not deemed appropriate for third grade, let's say.
Well, I would understand that, and you have the ages on there, or the grades on there, but I just didn't understand why Brookline and Hollis Elementary is different.
Because the other piece is if I'm a parent, I have every right. So think back 20 years when you were able to get the VHS list of all the, you know, movies that were available that your child might see in class. So this is like the ultimate VHS list of every website that they might possibly see. So when we did the training last June, we instantly became very popular amongst all the teachers that they were going to have to submit every single resource that they use. And yeah, it's been a journey. So.
I think you answered my one question before. before, just on, you know, what kind of fit, like when you're rejecting, but my other question was just currently with what we use, do we have any upcoming concerns? And a lot of these are listed as much, you know, if we have to, you know, reject, as you're going through the process and reviewing a little math app, you know, there's a million other math apps, but the ones that I'm more concerned about is the big stuff we use, like Power School, our school lunches, SNAP, things like that. All of those are, you know, there's no concern with the big ones, because if that was all of a sudden a problem, it would be a bigger issue. So those are all in compliance, so there's no concerns with those at this time?
All our licensed software is above and beyond most of the security protocols that are put out. We're not the first state to pass student privacy laws. I would say, I know Power School has the, I think, if Rich Raymond was here, he would know if it's like the ISO, whatever number that they're approved through. We're hosted, all that software, which in my opinion, I sleep better at night knowing that it's on their secure servers and not in here in a building.
No, that makes me feel better too, and I do understand how complicated this is. I'm married to an intelligence officer, this is what they do with the military, with every state, and unfortunately it's more and more of a problem, and it absolutely has a financial impact.
Yes.
Like, that's just crazy that it doesn't have, I mean, that's almost funny, but
What happens with the students when they bring their own devices? Does it block what they're trying to do in the building? Is there some type of filter or something?
Rich is not here. He can explain it better, but we have an internal network for staff devices, and any bring your own devices on a VPN network, I believe. And they have, so they're not plugged in to our internal network. They're two separate pieces, so we can track, and they can't access any internal servers. It's a guest network.
It's a guest network.
Yeah.
And that's even down to the elementary, you know, I know I've had to sign all those, you know, even the students have to sit through a training class and get their device approved and go through all of that. So even down to elementary, they do a really good job with that training for kids.
Anything else? Gina?
I just wanted to add that the data governance plan, is a very lengthy document, and we will be bringing that forward in June for a vote. So it was part of this packet, but in June, I will be looking for a vote on that. That's part of the law, that it is approved before June 30th, 2019.
And like with most things, the protocol has been that you bring it forth, we get to review it and read it and digest it for a month, and then we'll vote on it next month.
Yes.
So.
And I appreciate that. I made it partway through, but it's not a
Not a page turn.
I'm impressed that you made it partway through.
Story, that kind of thing. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
It doesn't give you nightmares.
And Gina, those policies that are listed should probably be brought to the policy committee as...
Yes, so they have been brought to the policy committee for every other district.
Right.
For a June reading.
Okay, so we'll be taking a look at them in committee in June and then bring them forth for reading. Okay, great. Any other questions, comments on that? Okay. So we'll move forward to the agenda adjusted item of discussion of the robotics request to fund architectural plans for the possible renovation of the space in the middle school. Any comments?
So first of all, I do want to congratulate Team 1073. They did, it's incredible and amazing, and they should all be very proud of themselves, and everyone should be. And certainly, everyone, I know I can speak for the board, I think, that we certainly have all spoken about it and how wonderful it is, and we're very happy for you. And as Holly said earlier, I would agree, even without your success in Detroit, we still have the utmost respect and support of the robotics team and the robotics program. As we do, I think, for all of our extracurricular activities, and as a board, I feel that we are elected officials and given a budget from the taxpayers, and I can, again, I don't want to speak for everybody, but as a board, I think we do the best we can for all of our students in every way, shape, or form. So I guess I was a little taken aback by some of the comments that the board wasn't supportive in some way and didn't want to help and was taking time. But as anything we do, and I think you can see it in everything that the board works on, it's a process, and it has steps and checks and balances that we have to work through to get things accomplished. And that's what we've been working on. So it certainly isn't because we're hesitating. The taxpayers came forward and gave us a warrant, and certainly we respect that and take that very seriously, and that's not anything that we do not. And unfortunately, there are things that just take time. I mean, we can even use the field as an example. The taxpayers supported that almost a year and a half ago, and we still haven't gotten around to that. So we follow our processes, and I think that's what we've been trying to do. And I just wanted, just from my extent, I was just concerned when I heard those things, because I don't feel that there is not support for robotics or any other extracurricular, that is a tough one, curricular activity that we have in the school, as well as all of our other programs and curriculum that we move forward with. Thanks. That's just a comment I had.
Anyone else? So I just want to explain that, because I've learned a lot in the last few years about the process. And in general, the way this works is that we want the public to see our agenda and know what we're going to be voting on. So we have a section in our agenda called Deliberations, and that's where, those are the things that we will take a vote on. Out of respect for board members who aren't here, they have excused absences, but they, maybe had they seen the agenda differently, they may have made a different decision about whether they would be here tonight. So it's really not fair to the public to make a vote on something, to add something to deliberations that is not on our agenda. And it's not fair to our current board members. So that's why we put this in discussion, so that we could at least let you hear our feelings on this. I truly believe that timing isn't as much of an issue as you may be feeling it is. We can work pretty quickly on projects, and if this were to be approved in June, I think that we would be able to manage to meet a lot of the needs of the robotics group. That's just me saying that. I'm not guaranteeing that. It's just my guesstimate. But I do feel like it's important for you to know that some of us on the board really want to see you in those spaces. I'm only speaking for myself right now. I don't want to speak for everyone. I also want to reiterate what Krista said. I feel like, personally, I've really supported robotics. Spent a lot of time working towards the STEM Center, and that didn't pass. And now we are fortunate enough to have a new crack at this, to make this to help your program and give you the space that you need. But I think we need to take our time, because that's how we do it. And it's a process that's frustrating for some, but it's how we work. And anything to add, anyone?
One of the things that we have prided ourselves is notification to citizens. And we discussed last month the facility, and we took a tour of what the new space could look like. We, this month, talked about curriculum, because they do relate from the standpoint of space. Next week, I will be providing the Budget Committee, which is another entity that oversees our dollars, with an update on both of those proposals. I'm on their scheduled agenda. And I feel quite confident with action in June that we will at least have the vast majority of the project done if it's approved by the board. I really feel confident. I know sometimes it seems doubtful, but I can tell you that if you go drive by Hollis Primary School, that was done in 10 weeks. So that's a complete rehabbing of the outside, 100% update of electrical work. And I know some of you are worried about construction people, but understand that we have 7 facilities that we work on every day. So people like our business, and people respond to us because they know there'll be more business in the future. So what may take you something of 6 to 8 weeks to get somebody to come in and give you an estimate at home is not going to be the same piece here. So I know it's frustrating, but you should also understand that since I've arrived, one of my main focus has been STEM education. I believe in robotics. It's not a talent I have. It's probably the furthest thing from my talent set. But at the same time, my job is to represent students. And it's one of your talents represented by all of you standing up. So my job is to put forth the best program we can. We went for a STEM lab and that failed. You as an organization stepped forward, put a warrant article together, and 85% of the people in attendance said yes. So we hear that loud and clear. And we do want it to happen. I want it to happen. But at the same time, I think it's really important, just like we didn't vote on the data governance plan, to provide the community with time to digest things. And the word will get around, and if somebody is for or opposed, this board and this administration will hear about it over the next 30 days. In a lot of ways, that helps us to make corrections and to do things that need to be done. So please don't take this as a lack of interest. I'm honestly not worried about where the architectural money would come from, because I've had somebody step forward and already offer me that funding to do that work, separate from what was passed by the voters and separate from the operating budget. So there is a great love for robotics and STEM education in these communities, and I just ask for your trust for a little longer as we move this forward.
Go ahead, Beth.
No, and I just, not to repeat everything else, I'm new here, so I just want to say that I really support robotics. I'm new to the town, I'm new to the SAU 41. I have a robotics student at home now, in our first year in robotics, so I'm really excited to see what gets put on the June agenda, and I'm excited for June, so I'm excited for our June meeting, so thank you.
And congratulations, you did a great job. We're very proud of all of you.
Yeah, absolutely, super exciting.
Okay. Are we ready to move on? Deliberations. Okay, so we need to see what action the board will take regarding the superintendent's recommendations for non-union and administrative compensation. I need a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendations for non-union and administrative compensation.
So moved.
Krista.
Second.
Beth. Is there any discussion on this? All in favor? 4-0. Okay. We're skipping that one. Okay, so last month we received the general assurances requirements for you to read through. I need a motion to authorize, I gotta take my glasses off for this one because I need to be able to read it. To authorize the board chairman to represent the school board and acknowledge that the superintendent has consulted with all members of the school board in furtherance of the school board's obligations, including those enumerated in RSA 189:1-A, and pursuant to the school board's oversight of federal funds the district will be receiving, and the general assurances, requirements, and definitions for participation in said federal programs. I need a motion.
So moved.
Cindy. And I need a second. Beth. Is there any discussion of this?
I'd just like to say this is one of the toughest things to read in the book.
Yes, it took a long time.
This was a really tough read, but I read it.
Okay, all in favor? In a nutshell, we just have to follow all the laws.
Yeah.
That's what I took from it.
That's pretty much what I got out of it. Yep.
Okay, so now we have some policy work that we'd like to do. I have some people here to speak to that. So the first is to accept the first reading of policy ACA, freedom for sexual harassment as amended. I need a motion.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was already jumping the gun.
That's okay, just a motion to put it on the floor, basically,
Yep.
for first read. Okay, Beth, seconded by?
Me.
Cindy. Okay, so I assume we're going to have some discussion. Maybe, Rick, you could kind of lead us through the changes that were made and amendments that were made to this.
Yes, so this is a policy. One of the things that I've learned over the years is that the principal is the Title IX coordinator for both buildings. And so this policy was written looks like it was last updated about 15 years ago. A lot has changed, particularly when you add in the digital online piece that sometimes these investigations go to. So there's a lot of moving parts. The big piece in here, and looking at the appeals portion, what I removed, and it may need a little more wordsmithing, but I think the intent was to put the school board as the appeal board, as opposed to going through, if you read through the lined items, it was one person shall be a parent or guardian of student of the district. I'm not an attorney. I can't imagine that you could bring in someone off the street to sit in on some of these hearings with some of the details that you would be hearing. It's, again, it's complicated. There's got to be privacy and legal pieces on any one of those. Not sure. Again, that was a long time ago. So in the end, the school board has to make the final determination. If I was a member of a school board, I would want to know all those details from the beginning and hear every piece of information. So that's the reason for the change. And at the bottom, the building, when it specifically designee, changing that out to be the building principal or designee as determined by the superintendent of schools, simply because the building principal could be someone who is being investigated. So it makes sense to be able to have some flexibility in that, or there could be a potential conflict of interest. There could be a lot of different things. So having the flexibility to adjust to those dynamic situations is recommended.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a couple questions. I completely support, I'm thankful to see the change to have the board serve as the appeal board. That sounds like a no-brainer. I've never actually seen it done the way it was in here, so I'm glad for that privacy part. The only question I had, or the concern, is maybe it's the second it's below that paragraph, and talking about when you're holding, informal hearing within 30 days, within 10 days of a hearing. I was just curious because we've taken the timeline completely out. And I'm just concerned with that, from any background I've had with an appeal process and when things come to a board, it's been pretty important in the past to have a time frame, to have, so that something doesn't drag out forever.
Yep.
Or it doesn't happen so quickly that both, all parties aren't prepared.
Right.
So I'm just confused. It definitely seems super dated, and everything sounds great. It's just the timeline piece I was concerned about.
I mean, I think that's a good point that we could take back before a second read. I agree, timelines are important. All of my reading, when it comes to an investigation under this policy, it's more, investigations need to be timely. Absolutely. So they don't necessarily designate a timeline. Doesn't mean we couldn't designate a timeline. I agree, but
and
yeah,
that's okay,
yeah.
And again,
you could adjust it, or
every
could
place
be.
is
I mean,
different,
we could take it back to policy and maybe work on some language about
timelines. Yep.
Timelines, maybe not a specific number of days, but a timely manner, some reference to the fact that we're going to
response times on inquiries.
As
yep.
possible.
And perhaps it's a non-issue in this community, but just given this is a sensitive nature to begin with this policy, and I've seen timelines kind of be abused in different directions, and it can be harmful to either party. And I'm just, but I agree, but I'm not suggesting something super rigid either, because an investigation might take a lot longer. It might be very quick, but just given all of the circumstances, I just think
so addressing the timing piece in the policy, whether we go with the specific or something more,
I just think it
more open, right?
Correct.
Something.
And perhaps if you want to leave some leniency, just an idea when you work on it is, because we know an investigation can take a great amount of time, perhaps you attach a timeline after investigations or after it has been completed. Then
we could add extensions or things to it. We could add applying for extensions like we have in the student-to-student bullying. That would give us flexibility.
Yeah. I'm still learning all the other policies too.
Yep.
Well, that's great. That's really good feedback.
I agree.
I don't see on my copy when we looked at this last. So we want to try to find that and make sure it gets on.
Okay, on the copy.
I'm sure it's probably on the.
It's on the regular one, but I didn't include that, so I'll make sure to.
We need to make sure we include that so that we can then amend that as this was first reading and that kind of thing. Anything else?
That's the main question.
Okay, so that was for first reading. We'll take it back to policy, address timelines. I guess all in favor? Is that all I gotta do? Right, okay, great. Terrific, so that's that one. So that's gonna go up in second reading, so that'll be on the agenda next month again. Sorry, I just need to make it up by now. Okay, so the next policy, we have a lot today. Let's, to amend, to amend under the heading school district, or am I right here? Yeah. See, to amend under the heading school district approval by adding the following sentence to the end of the paragraph. What is this? I don't know what she's saying.
ILD. We just
Okay.
added that one sentence into this one.
So we're just going to take it as first, second reading, right? Okay. So to accept a second reading of policy ILD, educational questionnaires, surveys, and research.
And so, based on,
I need a motion first.
so moved.
Krista. And then I need a second for that, Beth. Great. And then go ahead, Krista. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to discuss it.
Thank you so much.
So based on information or questions and concerns that we last month, we wanted to emphasize the fact that the school would not penalize any student or parents or guardians who chose not to opt in to the surveys. So we added that in there.
And we also removed the, we kind of changed, we moved the sentence that was after that, but put it down below, right?
Right.
Right. Are there any questions or comments on this? So we made a motion to accept it as second read. Did we want to try to amend that to be second and final? Can we do that?
We can do it.
So would anyone like to make a motion to make that second? I'm not hearing any discussion or comments that it needs to go back. So
I'll make a motion that we amend as second and final reading.
Second.
Krista, second, okay. So I think we need to vote on the motion and then vote on the amendment and then vote. So all those in favor of the amendment? Okay, so that was motion by Cindy, seconded by Krista. All in favor was 4-0. That was for the amendment to make it second and final. Now, is there any discussion on the motion of second and final? Okay, so all those in favor of second and final reading on ILD? Great, so that's 4-0, and that was motion by Kristen. So that one's done.
It looks like they did the same thing the last time. They only had 2 readings.
Right,
last time they
well, I
looked
mean,
at it.
it's sort of,
Yeah, so.
it's pretty fortunate, okay. So now we move on to policy ADC, tobacco products ban. I need a motion to accept, wait a second, hold on before I do that. Refresh my memory. I feel like we didn't, we just cleaned it up.
Yeah, we didn't make changes.
So would we like to do this as second and final as well? This is basically the same, okay. So can I get a motion to accept as second and final reading of policy ADC, tobacco products ban as presented?
So moved.
By Cindy.
Second.
By Krista. So if I remember and recall this, I have to go. This basically is just keeping the policy in line with our other policies.
Correct. There's a matching policy that's not under the A.
Right. So this is
G. Right.
Right. So this is a G and a J. I think we have it a G and a J.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, is there any discussion on this?
I just have one question.
Sure.
Just the font, I know it's not necessarily, but the font's different in different
It
sizes.
does. The
And
font
then-
is different.
Yeah, and then also the tobacco products, it looks like there's an underscore under both of those parentheses. And so I was just gonna maybe say, just take a peek at the
Yeah,
making the
definitely.
font and all that, but not any of the content, but just,
I think last time, one of the questions, what we worked on in policy is the fact that we call it a tobacco products ban. And that's been one of the concerns, is that when searching our policy, if you were to search for just vaping, it wouldn't come up. But if you search for liquid nicotine or vaporizers or liquid non-nicotine products, it would come up. So the fact that it's a tobacco products ban is a little bit of a misnomer, but it is really pretty much across the board what we use. So.
Sure, and I wasn't questioning the.
No.
I was just, yeah.
No, I got you.
Just the underscore.
We have this
That's
extra
all.
underscore
Yep,
under there,
that's
which
all.
we
Yeah.
could have added by accident when we were doing it, but go ahead.
And I just want to add that one thing that we talked about to help those parents who are searching for the policy is that communication sent out by the principals from here on out would include reference to the policy, so they would be able to identify where that is.
Right. So, with those keepings in mind, I think we can make those cleanup changes and not have to bring it back. So, anything else? Like clean up the font?
No, and that's all it is. And I see a few others in there too. So it's just punctuation
Right.
and font. It's nothing. I have no other questions.
Yeah, I see another little underscore here.
Yeah.
Under
If you look
fields.
through, yep. There's a few others. So if you just peek through it, yep. Fields was the one I saw.
So we'll do a little cleanup on it, but we won't change any of the language.
Sounds good to me.
Is everyone good with that? So, all those in favor? Okay. 4-0. Okay. Brings us to policy AC, non-discrimination. So, again, should we do second and final?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Gina, think it's second and final?
I think so.
Okay, so, would anybody like to make a motion to accept the second and final reading of policy AC, discrimination, as presented?
Non-discrimination.
Non-discrimination, sorry.
Big difference.
It says, okay, in the outline, it says non, but clearly, non-discrimination.
So moved.
Thank you,
For
Krista.
non-discrimination.
And second?
Second.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, is there any discussion? Again, this is another one of those that we are just cleaning up. We already changed a policy in the fall to reflect, to include the words gender identity, to change some things from national ethnic origin to nationality and ethnic origin. And then I just went and matched the language so that when you read our policy, they're in the same order. Gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, it just goes right like that. So, and we cleaned up the coordinator Title IX because we included the building principal or designate because, as Rick pointed out, the building principal may be the person who's being accused of being discriminatory. So, those were the major changes.
The shady look over there.
I didn't say a word.
So.
We may be accusing somebody, so, you know.
I actually, second reading.
Go that way, too.
Final. So, is there any other comments on this? All those in favor? Any opposed? No. So that's 4-0. Great. And then finally, policy IJOC, volunteers. I would also like to make this third and final. I mean, this is third, so, and this has been in front of us for a while. So, does anyone feel like we need to bring this to a fourth reading before we make the motion?
Is it third?
It is third. We did it in April. Oh, is it second?
But it says
It's a second.
Second.
I feel like we did it, haven't we done it 3 times?
I feel like
It says
this is
third
second.
here.
Well, we talked about being first last time, so.
Okay, maybe it is
Sure.
second then.
Did we
Sorry.
just talk about it in policy and then bring it forward?
Maybe we did, I'm sorry. Okay, so the outline says third, but I don't have a date for, I feel like we read it. Okay, so let's just move it forward as second reading, not finalize it, and that way, if we have an error in the reading, we can change that next month. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So would someone like to make a motion to accept as third reading?
Or second?
Second reading. Policy IJOC, volunteers.
So moved.
Krista. And second?
Second.
Beth, seconded, thank you. Any comments?
Only comment the font again.
Does the font change on this one too?
Just the first paragraph to the second, and then it looks
You're
pretty
right,
darn
it does.
consistent. Everything else looks pretty clean, but then you also have, just because of the visual, I'm sorry, but
Don't be sorry.
You know, for the first section under designated volunteers, you have 1 through 4, and it's a double space, and then as you get down under supervised and volunteers, it's single space, but just if you want to clean that. So
Well, it gives us something to do in policy. This is so great, so.
And
single space
works.
that.
Yeah, single space works.
There, and then we need to fix the font.
Yeah.
No, these are so easy to do in policy.
Oh, yeah,
This is
they're
so-
easy, yeah.
So much
The
better.
motion last month was to accept second reading of policy IJOC. So this is the third, I mean, it's in the minutes.
Okay,
That way,
so.
if you want to do,
Should we make a motion to amend the first motion we made to make this third and adopt, since that's what it was in the minutes? Let's do that, and we can change the font. I don't think we need to bring it back to change the font. So could someone make a motion to amend the motion we just made to accept this as third and adopt the policy IJOC volunteers?
I make a motion to accept this as third and final reading for IJOC.
Okay, so you're amending that. Anybody second the amendment? Second. Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? Okay, so now we have the motion, which is now going to be third and final. We've already discussed this, so would anybody like to take a vote on that? All those in favor? Where's here? I don't know if I had to do it twice, but I did, because Robert. Okay.
It was passing all sorts of.
Zoom. Okay, so, great, so we've passed that one. Terrific. So that one's done. I can put a big check on that. I just need to take this back to policy, so I'll clean that. Thank you very much, everyone. Now, a report out from the process observer.
Did Andy want to do dates?
Oh, dates, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Deliberations, thank you, process observer.
if the bids come in, which they are due by 2 o'clock on Friday, May 24th, I was wondering if the board's schedule to get a quorum would allow for May 29th, which is the following Wednesday, trying to stay on a Wednesday.
I have a question about that, because we got an email today
Yes.
about a meeting, and it's proposed for either the 24th or the 29th, and we don't know yet.
The 23rd.
Correct.
Or 23rd or
22nd.
Is it Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I know it was a Wednesday.
But here's my thought on that. Depending on what those dates work out, I would post it as a double header for the co-op. So you'd be here for the SAU governing board, and then would post the start for the co-op, because it'd only be one agenda on both of those meetings.
Right.
So what you're saying then is we should all respond that we want to go on SAU the 29th.
I'm not available the 29th, but don't let that stop.
I can make the 29th work.
I might have already responded and said the 29th worked better, but.
I can make the 29th.
I can make either. I'll make them work.
So we can, I'll send an email out to the rest of the board
That'd be
about the
great.
29th and see if, how that works. But it sounds like so far we have 3 that can do it. We need 4,
Right.
but I'm sure we can get a 4th. So, is that all you really needed for today?
That's it.
Just a ballpark?
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that I've missed?
Just the process observer.
Process observer and any agenda building, but is there anything we need to worry
Do we
about?
want anything for agenda building, other than robotics?
Robotics, possibly, robotics.
Are we going to have reports? Don't we usually get a couple of
we-
different reports in June?
We'll have a budget committee report from our meeting next week. We'll have, getting close to final report of revenue and expenses. We'll have our principals and athletic updates. We'll have any open items from this meeting, which would be robotics and things like that.
And the middle school schedule.
The middle school schedule would be back, and then policies. And then, yes, we would also have, Kelly will post public hearings for the athletic trust and the maintenance trust.
Okay.
That would be the June meeting.
All right, so process
may have
observer, oh, sorry.
We may be able to add a little report out from the instructional practices committee.
Okay.
Just to put
Yep.
that on there, just so that the board is aware of what's going on there. Okay.
So process observer, we blew through it. Our first big official meeting, and we got through a lot of policy. We were on time for everything Just a few minutes ahead on the deliberations because some of the discussion took a little bit longer to catch us up, but we are dismissing at 8:49, half an hour early.
So would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? Beth?
Second.
Second by Krista. All in favor? Nobody's opposed. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Rick and Bob want to leave.